at the library here, and she suggested this, so we kind of threw it together very quickly. So I'm grateful to all of you for being here and you on the Zoom, and for Mona for working the camera and handling the things that are just not my forte. And my friend Rebecca for bringing her delicious financier cookies. Yeah, thank you. But they're my favorites. So, okay. And I'm going to be, because it came together so quickly, I'm going to be reading a lot, if that's okay. So, so for the travelogue, I'm going to read the introduction about what brought me to spend the 3 weeks in France. And then after that, I'm going to share a slideshow of the trip. And then afterwards, we can discuss some tips and lessons that I learned. And then finally, feel free to ask any questions you may have about European travel, solo travel, train travel, any other topics of interest. So I'm eager to share my experience with you today. And I'm more excited than nervous, even though it doesn't look like it. So, okay. I was 12 years old, standing alone on a street corner at night in Amsterdam. While I waited outside, too terrified to go in, my mother was inside learning about the Hare Krishnas we had met at the airport. My mother was always curious about people and culture, and she believed in experiencing life to the fullest. This adventurous spirit led her to take me on a 3-month journey through Europe when I was nearly 13, and the trip profoundly influenced my outlook on life. Our backpacks loaded with camping gear and clothes, and planning to use my sister Mary's home, who was stationed in Augsburg, Germany, as a home base, we set off to explore Austria, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, England, Belgium, Holland, and France for 3 months. Mom's spirited lifestyle led the way. There was the experience outside the Hare Krishnas at Amsterdam, me refusing to come inside, so sure she would be kidnapped. Then in Germany, we met a group of women dancing in the park, flowers in their hair. It turned out they were in the Children of God cult, so of course we went to spend the night at their commune. We camped in Austria during a storm, our pup tent soaking us throughout the night. In the middle of the night, after the storm passed, we heard a gang of motorcyclists pull in to set up camp. We were frightened and worried what might happen. When we awoke, we made friends with this group of motorcyclists and shared a breakfast together of leftover Jaeger schnitzel from our dinner at a restaurant the night before and a can of Chef Boyardee ravioli. I was nearly 13 and it was the best meal of my life. Those 3 months expanded my awareness in ways I could never foresee. It opened my eyes to the different flavors of the world, the Jaeger schnitzel and spätzle with cabbage in Austria, pommes frites served in a paper cup with mayonnaise in Belgium, brötchen with butter and jam in Germany, and really good, strong coffee everywhere we went. We purchased Eurail passes and spent our time on and off the train. We slept in youth hostels or camped, never fearful except for that one rainy night in Austria. After returning home, inspired by our travels, I studied French in high school and German in college. I fell in love with the arts, people, and the celebration of our differences while finding common ground. Food became a passion, whether cooking, eating, fermenting, growing, dehydrating, or tasting something new. And I brought home with me a desire to experience the world through food. I made my first return to Europe last winter when I took a Viking Danube River cruise. It was thrilling, but the experience was diluted by being handheld through the adventure. Although I loved the experience and the food, it was nothing like traveling solo. Now at 60, I was to embark on my first solo trip back to France, a country that had captured my heart many years ago. The idea for the trip came after I was invited to a writing residency in the countryside of southwestern France. The facilitator, Kathy Gunst, is a James Beard award-winning chef, NPR podcast host, and author of 16 cookbooks. It would be an opportunity to devote time to my travel cookbook idea that I've had working on for years, called Global Plates, The People We Meet, The Food They Eat. And it would be a way to get clear on the direction of the book. Having this anchor of a group trip, which I'll discuss further in this tip section, allowed me to plan the trip around the event. The trip came together synchronistically. Suddenly, I'm getting emails from Paris tour guides, emails I get regularly from tourism people, but I would normally ignore it if I didn't have plans to be in Paris. Now I would, and I responded eagerly. I booked every segment of the trip myself, not necessarily something I recommend. If you're uncertain, use a travel agent. I felt as if I had taken enough trips and planned itineraries that I could handle it myself. And I did. even with a few snafus that I'll discuss later, so you don't make the same mistakes. Working around the dates of the writing residency, I booked my airfare, a hotel in Paris, a tour in Paris, and purchased train tickets. From Paris, I would take the train to Agen for the writing residency. From there, I scheduled 3 nights in Bordeaux, 3 nights in Narbonne, and the climax of the trip, a 6-night cruise on a luxury barge hotel on the Canal du Midi. My sister Lynn made plans to take the cruise with me, and we decided to meet at the train station when she arrived. The itinerary was set, and it felt like a nice balance of solo and group travel. I'd be solo in Paris with the other writers in Agen, then solo in Bordeaux and Narbonne, until my sister met me for the cruise. Everything was booked, and I was ready to go. I learned a lot on this trip, so today I want to share my 3-week journey through France, reflecting on the highlights, the connections that I made, and the personal growth that I experienced. From navigating the bustling streets of Paris to the peaceful countryside near Agen, exploring the rich history of Bordeaux, immersing myself in the culture of Narbonne, and enjoying a serene barge cruise along the Canal du Midi, this trip was a transformative experience. I learned lessons about solo travel, empowerment, and the expanded awareness that comes from travel. I'll also discuss the challenges I faced, offer tips for solo travel, and share anecdotes that made this journey unforgettable. Okay. So, got 3 weeks in France. And I'm going to kind of let this go and then stop it as needed. But so the first week I started out 2 nights in Paris, and my plane was delayed. And so I was a day late to Paris. So this was all I saw of the Tour d'Eiffel. My hotel, so I missed the tour of Paris and 1 night and a dinner with the other writers who were going to be meeting in Agen. And so I came to the Hotel Montalembert, stunning, absolutely stunning, but I needed to acclimate to some of the European things. I mean, I had the adapter for the electricity, you know, for power, but things I did not know, like their elevator, I just stood there. I mean, I could not figure this elevator out for the life of me. The elevator, when I got in the room, I couldn't figure out how to get the lights to turn on. The water, I couldn't get, so many things I had to just kind of learn as I went. But it started in Paris. So here's that elevator. And it's 2 doors. This one you open and then you're looking at a door. And that's the outside of my hotel. And this was, so I was limited on time, and I was going to be the next day jumping on the train to go to the writing residency. So directly across from the hotel was this Monoprix, which is a grocery store, and it was phenomenal. I mean, the fresh produce and the sandwiches already made, and the well, I shared them on Facebook, but I didn't bring pictures of that. So this is my meals that in Paris, a sandwich to go, and the croque monsieur, which I had interviewed the chef about. So the train ended up kind of being my biggest challenge, and mostly because of 100% because of the language barrier. My French is so bad. And so the very first route, I went to the Paris train station, and when the taxi got there, I said, I'm going to the station. He said, right there, and it was a great big building. And so I went in there, and I walked in and said, hall 1, 2, 3, 4, and nowhere did my ticket say anything about a hall. It just said what train I was going to be on. And so I just stood there not knowing what to do. And so I couldn't find an information desk. So I went back outside, and I found an information desk outside, and I showed the gentleman my ticket, and he says, oh, you're on WeGo, which is around the corner in the back side of the building. And I was like, I would have never found that. I mean, finally found that, and then I get in there, and it's this enormous train station. It's nothing like our Union Station here, enormous, and all these tracks, and I'm standing there looking up at the board, and I can't figure out where what track I go to for my train. I'm just keep looking at it, and so I go around asking people, "Parlez-vous anglais? Parlez-vous anglais?" and kind of in a panic. But luckily, I was there like 45 minutes early. So finally, I found a young couple, and I said, "Parlez-vous anglais?" And she says, "No," and he says, "Oh, we speak enough," And so they told me that, my train is up there, but they won't show the track until about 20 minutes before it departs. So which is great, but then you have 20 minutes to go find that track, you know, in my mind is what I was thinking. So I just kind of, I really went into panic mode. I did the fight, flight, or freeze, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. And I just froze and I just stood underneath a sign and no, I didn't cry, but well, I should have cried, then somebody would help me probably. But I just stood under the sign, and one of the other gals who was going to this residency, I had Wi-Fi in the station, and so I texted her, and she said, "Well, I'm wearing this," and I said, "No, I'm under this sign. You have to come find me." I mean, and I just no. So she came and found me, and nothing changed. But having somebody with me made it better. It just made it easier because then it showed up 20 minutes before and we went and walked to the track and we boarded the train. So it was my problem that I had on the train that first time. So, well, except for being in the wrong building. So it was raining and it was kind of unique on the trains there. They don't, you know, some of them were like 2 seats facing 2 seats with a table, and some of them were just like Amtrak where it's seats in a row, that kind of thing. So they were all different. But the very first one that I got on was the seats around a table, and no one spoke with each other. And at first I was thinking, oh, it's because I don't speak French, but they weren't speaking to each other either. So I don't know. I think Americans are more chatty is what I think, because I know on the trains here, everybody's always like, where are you going? Where are you from? You know, and I didn't see that so much there, and that was kind of disappointing, but I snuck that picture out the window because it was obvious they did not want me taking pictures on the train. So that was why I had very few. So the train pulled into Agen and we arrived, and this was my week at the writing residency. So this is Relais de Camont, which is where the residency was held, and it's owned by Kate Hill. She's an American woman who she lived on a barge on the canal for 25 years. I mean, to me, she was my mother's type of lifestyle. You know what I mean? That just living in life. And so she lived on the barge for 25 years, and then she renovated these 2 farmhouses from the 1700s and put in a bridge connecting them and created this space for artists and writers, or, you know, whoever wants to come and just have a retreat. And so she opened the retreat in the countryside, and it's situated about 15 minutes from the Agen train station. And for our writing residency, there were 3 of us, plus the instructor, Kathy. And each day we spent like a 2-hour workshop on a specific topic. So she would teach us about, because the theme was food and memoir, because she's a food writer. And so we would work on editing or recipe creation, or, you know, and different narrative recipes or versus, you know, the standard kinds. And it was very interesting, and food and memoir. And what surprised me, which it shouldn't because of the story about my mom surprisingly came up a lot in my writing that we were doing. And but surprisingly, my dad also, who passed away when I was 27, showed up a lot in the writing. I felt their presence in the room that I was given to use as my workspace. So that's the home, yeah. And then this is their garden, some of her gardens. She has so many roses. There's a banana tree, you know. Oh, it was just phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, you could just book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was my room, and so this was my workspace. I had this gorgeous view. The window just opened up, and I kept saying, "Will something fly in?" And they're like, "No." So, but gorgeous view. You get the breeze because there's really not much air conditioning in France. Pardon? It's like Walden Pond. Yes, I mean, it was fabulous. But my parents showed up in this room. I don't know if you can see, but down on the floor next to it are a stack of encyclopedias. And my mom sold encyclopedias when I was a kid. And so we always had them prominently displayed at the end of the hall, you know, our encyclopedias. And it's where I learned about puffins and, you know, everything. And so to me, that was a big statement, having those there. And then next to the bed was a stack of books. And the top one was The Last Runaway, which it was kind of a nod to my turbulent teenage years, you know, but it was a fitting title to represent those years. So for the writing residency, Kate Hill had brought in James Beard, award-winning author of the Mosquito Supper Club. And she's also a chef of the restaurant of the same name in New Orleans, Melissa Martin. And so the food that week was just unparalleled. And, you know, New Orleans is very French influenced in their cooking. And her food was just, I'm just really not even putting into words how good it was. But so it was unparalleled. We visited 2 farmers markets. And so then every meal was focused on what we had purchased at the market. We bought a rabbit and we bought a duck and we bought these strawberries and itty bitty little artichokes and the blanche, the white asparagus, and, you know, wild asparagus. And I mean, so all of these foods are what constituted our meals. And it was better than the Chef Boyardee. I gotta admit that. So every meal, you know, we had a rabbit with prune stew, and we had a duck shepherd's pie, and delicate tiny artichokes fried in garlic and oil, or the strawberry galette she made us with the crust that came from a cooking demonstration. So the week was spent with plenty of time relaxing in the gardens, meals outdoors, trips to the various towns, and even a prune farm, and learning the art of food and memoir writing. It's a great experience. Okay, so this is my room, my bed, and next to it is where I'm the book about my the last runaway. And this is all of us on the first night cooking together. That's Kate Hill. She's the owner of the home. And it was just charming. I mean, so much. So then we went to the farmer's market. This was a close market nearby. And everyone, even though this was a small market, you know, there's several cheese vendors and several meat vendors. And those artichokes, I dream about those. And the strawberries. Yes. So some of the meals that we had, that strawberry galette, that was just, and this was a prosciutto or ham wrapped around endive and with the gratines. Oh, so good. There was the duck shepherd's pie. This was Kate teaching us how to eat artichokes, or not artichokes, asparagus. And so first, that's an asparagus soup that was just amazing. So then she came out and she said, okay, you need to prop the plate up. So put a fork underneath it so that your plate is tilted. And then you pour oil and vinegar and salt and pepper to your taste. And then you dip it in with your fingers and you eat it. And then you drink the soup out of the cup instead of using a spoon, you know. So you're eating the asparagus and drinking it. It was unparalleled. And this is Melissa, who was the chef from New Orleans. And she gave us a class on pie crust. And some of you don't know that I tried to make that strawberry galette and it did not turn out. And so, but the 3 of us watched her make this pie dough. And the point was we were all supposed to write a recipe based on what we saw. And we had 3 totally different recipes. And so it was really interesting look at how how the importance of testing recipes before you try to bring them to a talk. So, okay, this was, I gotta check the name of the town. Oh yes, Narak. We went here for another farmer's market. This was the Saturday market. And I've never seen such a large farmer's market. It starts down below the river. You see the river there. It starts down below with flowers. And then as you walk up through all these winding streets, it goes from like ornamental things and blouses and jewelry. And then it goes to produce. And then it goes to cooked foods. And I've never seen anything. We spent probably 4 hours wandering. It was just, and then stopped and had coffee afterwards. And one of those, I shouldn't even say it because I'm going to get the name wrong. Carcassonne, Rebecca, you're a pastry person. I don't know. It's some pastry that Bordeaux is known for, and I didn't like it, so I didn't put much effort into learning the name. But we sampled those and had coffee, and it was just a fabulous day. So this is that farmer's market. So just a few pictures from that. So the streets and the buildings, just the antiquity of all the buildings. It was just so fascinating. So this is where we started below with the flowers. Yes. He's like, why are you taking a picture of We had these oysters one night. Okay, so this guy, he was so we were kind of on our own to get something for lunch, and so he had a plat du jour, and it was this pulled pork and grilled zucchini and mashed potatoes. I can't tell you. I mean, just sitting it was fabulous. So he let me take his picture and he smiled. And the bread, oh my gosh, baguettes every morning and every meal. And that was in the alley. So our last night, Kate grilled, wood-fired these oysters. So they were not raw, but they were warm. I mean, they weren't cooked, like oh, they were so good. So good. That was there they are. So this was our final dinner before we left. And that's our group. Eating outdoors, nothing like it. Okay, back to the train. So this will be my second time on the train. And Kayla, one of the other gals, she was going to Bordeaux and then to Paris, and I was going to Bordeaux to spend 3 nights. And so we went together to the train station. So that kind of helped seeing the signs. And by this point, I swear it was just, I was better, but it still was nice having somebody with me. I don't know why being lost with someone is better than being lost by yourself. So this was in the front where the restrooms were, and the restrooms were even fascinating. I should have taken pictures of that. I mean, it was like you push a button like an elevator and it opens up. I mean, it was totally automated. The toilet flushes on its own and the hand things do, everything is automatic. And then you stand there and go, how do I get out? I mean, because there's no, and finally you find the button you got to push to get out. But these tracks were something that just kind of confused me because they're like speed bumps. And I guess they want you not to go very fast with your luggage, but it seems weird because they really make it hard to get your luggage through. So that was that. And then I took a picture of this, and even though it didn't have much food left in it, because I was fascinated by these fresh food vending machines. We found one that was sushi, which just kind of seemed gross, but like this one, I don't know, it wasn't this one. Another one I saw, it just had a basket of kiwi. And I'm like, who buys a basket of kiwi at the train station? But you got kiwi to eat on the train, I guess. But, this one's got wine and some sandwiches and things. But I just love that they had fresh produce at the train, fresh food and wine. And there we were waiting for the train. And that's Kayla. She is a brilliant writer. Oh my gosh. Inside the train station. No, this is one. Oops, I put that in the wrong place. So we ended Agen. So now the first train it was seats, with a table, and now this one it's seats in a row. And I was unsure about how to know when I was supposed to get off of the train because they don't announce anything in English. I mean, it's the airports, there's signs in English, but the train stations, you're on your own. And so when they announce it, they don't just say Narbonne, and then I'm like, oh, okay, this is my stop. They talk for about 5 minutes and I have no idea what they're saying. Right. And so in my tips, I'll talk about this, but something that became very valuable was a friend had ahead of time had me download the app for the train system. And I did not know it, but I could pull that up and it showed me where I was on the route. So then I knew when to get off. Because otherwise, the first couple times I just would show my ticket and say, EC? And they're like, yeah. So that was that experience. Okay, so in Bordeaux, this is a 5-star hotel, absolutely stunning. I've never seen this kind of service that they give there, but it's Villas Folk is what it's called. And I arrived that afternoon from the train and I went on a walking tour to discover the city. And it's a very walkable city. Look at this room. Oh my gosh. It was just, and same thing with the windows, just they open. Okay, so this is the walking tour. Jill's eating it. And I learned how to make these later. But I guess like a cream puff is what I don't remember the actual name for them. But So this walking tour, she took me to show me, first off, Bordeaux is very walkable, but we went around to discover the heart of the city, which is the city center, the soul of the city, which is the cathedral, and then the breath of the city, which is the harbor. So it's a gorgeous city. I really love. Yeah. This was the one who made fun of my English, would say hot dog, put in that little twang when she'd tell me words. So the tram system there, it is, so in addition to being very walkable, the tram goes everywhere. You can either jump on, can buy a single pass, or you can get, like I had a 48-hour pass. So it didn't matter if I goofed and got off of the wrong place because I could just jump back on. And so I really utilized that to get around a lot. There's the cathedral. So just these buildings. And she talked a lot about, which was just an interesting point to me, of, I don't know if it's a mayor or president, or I'm sorry that I don't know that, but whoever it was is instigating more green things. And so, all these city areas, people are allowed to grow things on the wall somehow, but the green, but so he totally, the harbor area, which is about what we're about to, it was like an industrial area before. She said it was just parking spots and factories, So they just completely redid it, and now it's this. Some artists installed this mirror of water, and then they put in these gardens that you're going to see that they're foraging gardens. I mean, flowers and things like that, but you could forage for zucchini, and just take it. And to me, that just made me happy, So there's the mirror, the water mirror. Yeah. And this is the garden where people, hang out and pick things, and somebody's dancing. And then, so it's right on the water, and there's boats that same pass, that 48-hour pass, I could use the boat to get to places as well. Oh, so then that night, a friend of mine, we grew up together. Our mothers were best friends for many, many years, and her mother passed as well just recently, MK. And so her daughter is living in Holland part of the time, but also has a place in France. And so it just turned out that she was taking her husband to Bordeaux to the airport. And so she said, let's meet. And so we met and had dinner, and it was just very nice. And City du Van, I don't put much on here, but it's a great museum. I just was kind of museum fatigued on this particular day because it's out of order, but there's this other big tour I went on right before that. But I definitely recommend going, but don't have it be your activity that day. So this was the one that wore me out. Was we went to with the tour guide, and it was a group of us. And that was also, I think, what really enhanced this particular aspect for me was I was with other travelers. And, there was a couple from Hawaii. There was a couple from Hawaii. A young man, I think said he was 21 or 22, that was just doing the real backpacking through Europe thing, and he just kept eating constantly. He just, he would pull things out of his backpack, and he was constantly eating. I wish I could do that. So him, and then there was a young woman from, was it Vietnam or Korea? No, I think it was Korea, but her English was much better than my French, but she just said, I said, what brought you here? And she said, I quit my job and came here for 5 weeks. I love people like that. It was so fabulous to get to spend a day with this group of people. So that's who we're on this tour. And this was, that's our group. That is a young guy. Yeah, yes. We have to talk about this bad experience. Oh, well, that, not bad experience, but learning a lesson. So another thing I'm going to talk about is the importance of having a working phone over there. And I did not. And so I did eventually get a SIM card, but when I was at the writing residency, I didn't see a point because everybody I was talking to was there. And so, and I had Wi-Fi, but I just couldn't Uber or, Google Maps or things like that. Or the translator I downloaded the translator so that I could put in a word and it would tell it to me, but I couldn't take a picture of something and it tell me what it said without internet. So I went to eat by myself in Bordeaux, and I had seen on the menu, I recognized it was pizza and it was truffle, and I was just like, that's what I want. So I went in, and when he brought me the menu, he said, here's tonight's menu, and that wasn't on the menu. So I'm looking at these things going, I don't know what anything is. And so at one point I recognized salmon. I'm like, oh, salmon. And I said, is that salmon? He says, yeah, but he said, but it's very petite. You're going to want to get something else. And I said, that's fine. And so the other is shrimp, and they were delicious, but the salmon was raw and it's not something I would have ordered on purpose. So tip is get that phone thing working before you go eat by yourself, because I put it on the bread and ate, though, because I wasn't going to miss it. And it actually was very good, but I just wouldn't have ordered raw. And so these are some of the foods in Bordeaux and Narbonne. So then the train to Narbonne. So by this point, I was pretty comfortable. I knew how to see when the train was coming, and I knew to look at the app to see when I got there. And the only kind of trial on this particular train was that I'm racing. My problem is because I did coach instead of first class, my car would be like number 14, which is all the way down at the end. So I'm racing down to the end. Well, I get to my car. No, it was D. It was 10. So it was car 10, seat 200 and something. And I look at the sign and it says car 10, but it seats 100 to 150, or, I'm making up numbers, but mine was not there. And it was the very last car. And so I saw someone standing outside, and I said, car D, but my seat, and he was like, huh. And finally he says, oh, it's all fucked up. He said, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were acting like you couldn't understand a word I was saying when I'm trying to speak to you in French. And he says, it's all messed up. He said, you just go in and sit anywhere. Well, there was only one seat left, so I was very grateful for that. So I got a seat. But other than that, I was getting more comfortable on the train on the third time. And, the vineyards, everywhere you go, seeing the grapes, it was just... Okay, another nice hotel. I really was spoiled on this trip. And I was hosted. I was hosted at all the destinations. This was Chateau Capitoul, and it was set up on a hill just outside of Narbonne. So by this point, I'm in Narbonne. And just outside of town, up on a hill, overlooking where you could see the Pyrenees in the background, and then the vineyards as far as you can see. It was stunning. And they had taken this castle, which, because chateau means castle, and it's normally associated with a vineyard, but they had taken this castle just a couple years ago, renovated it, and turned it into 8 rooms, and then built 44 villas. I mean, villas with their own private pools, and very, very nice. But I was staying in the castle, which when it comes to luggage, I had my backpack and I had a carry-on luggage. I thought I was doing pretty well, keeping it down to just a carry-on bag and a backpack. But you see that tower? That's where my room was. I had to go up these gorgeous, what's that stone? Marble stairs, gorgeous spiral marble stairs, carrying this thing, trying to get up it. But it was beautiful. And I was up on the second floor. Just stunning. But the pictures aren't the best because, yes. So I stayed there for one night, and this is the pool that everyone can use. And they installed these olive trees to eventually be shade. And then I toured their vineyard, and they use their winery, and they use they use concrete instead of barrels for the wine. And she said it's modern, but it's ancient. She said it's the ancient way it was originally done, but they quit doing that, and then now they're starting to do it again. And so that's why they do that. Great wine, and I had a wonderful dinner with the tourism person there. So then the next day, I was driven back into Narbonne and checked into Hotel Mosaic, which was kind of a boutique-y, small, very, very fun place. But I went on a walking tour in Narbonne, and it was a Roman city. It was like Paris of the times. It was the first Roman city that was built, and it's all been buried or destroyed. And so they have very few actual artifacts left from that. But that road that I showed in the very beginning was the original road that would transport the wine and supplies and things. And then this was the old castle and the new castle. And I mean, it was just, I can't even wrap my head around how the historical importance. And then, so this is modern art in this old castle courtyard. And then this, I don't remember the details, but I took a picture of it anyways. It's do you know what the animal is, anyone? I guessed it was I thought it was a hyena, but it's a wolf, it's a she wolf. And I can't remember which country it was, but they donated it to them because it represented suckling the babies, you know, the she wolf. I think so. Mm-hmm. Yes, but that's who gave this to them. Yeah, to represent that connection but so the baby's suckling on a she wolf. I just loved it. Yes, and these courtyards. I mean, just gardens. Mm-hmm. Is that a castle? I think that was a church. Oh, and so here we're coming to this market. You know, I love food things. So this is the covered market that they have, and they were voted the best market in France last year. It was phenomenal. I mean, so it's completely indoors, probably the size of Costco. I mean, you know, is what I'm guessing, but just everything you could ever want. And this guy, we ended up eating at this restaurant that's showing right there, and I'll tell you when we get to the picture of him. But anything you possibly want. And actually on the cruise, our chef came and we went with him shopping we had a seafood buffet. Oh, this is oh my gosh, I was on the lookout for it everywhere I went. You know, now all the words went into my head. It'll come back to me. But it's this bean dish, and it's very regional. Cassoulet. Thank you. Yes. So it's like duck and sausage and pork cooked in these white beans. So it's kind of soupy, but then they bake it so long that it gets crispy on top and you break through that. It was amazing. I mean, so when I saw this at that market, I said, oh, I want to try this. And they said, well, in the cruise, you're going to get a chance. So I want to I told my sister, hi, Mary, that I want to recreate it here. And she said, well, you know, you got to get duck. And I said, well, no, I don't like the duck. I'm just going to make it the way I like, because it was just something I want to try to see if I can recreate it in our version. So this guy at the market, he's a former rugby player. And it's just this big theatrical scene of, you know, so around him are these meat butchers. And so he offers duck and beef and something and horse. And I shouldn't have said it like that, and horse. And so somebody orders something and he'll call out for whichever meat it is, and they will throw him, you know, so it's this big ordeal, but it was fun. And he's cute. He was very fun. Mm-hmm. But his personality, you know, I mean, just, you know, screaming for it. And let's see. Oh, so this was the Abbey. So we went to this Abbey. And for me, it was just fascinating to learn about, you know, in the 12th century, the monks, and there were laymen, I think is what he called them, but basically they were like one step above being homeless, or, you know, I mean, they worked for free, they stayed there, they could not speak to the monks, and they couldn't, you know, but they had shelter, and, you know, because this is back in the 12th century when, you know, it was very important to have water and shelter and food and things like that. So they did all the work, but it was just fascinating at this abbey to learn. And again, another gorgeous courtyard. And the rose garden, love the rose garden. And actually, it was supposed to rain all the time, and it rained a few times, which I'm going to get to a story about the rain. No, I think we already did the vineyard. In the vineyard, that city that we went to, this was in Narbonne. I got my first taste of being on the canal. We just did a very short, kind of a touristy barge tour. But on the weather, who was it? I can't remember. Oh, yes. We commented when we went to the vineyard that day, and we went to that ancient city, and Carcassonne was the name of the city. And we had commented, oh, we've got lucky because it just seems to rain every time we're in the car. And oh, we got so lucky. And we get to the city, and it's a downpour. And it's the only downpour that we had the whole time I was there, because it would normally just sprinkle a little bit and then be gone. So we all huddled into the alcove of a door and just stood there. I mean, drenched. I have a coat that I'm throwing away that it's not a raincoat, it's a wind jacket, or maybe it's water resistant, but it's not. I was soaked and freezing. But same thing, it passed, and then it was a beautiful day. So we had really great weather. And then this is Hotel or Mosaic in Narbonne, which was the boutique one. So then my sister finally arrives. This is the end of week 2. She came in, and I'd been eating such great food, but I was kind of craving either a hamburger or pizza, something, I mean, the rabbit and the duck and everything was phenomenal, and things I'd never tried before, but I just wanted something, And so and my sister, if she watches this, might be a little bit of a picky eater. So I thought this would be a safe bet. We can go have pizza. It was right across from the train station. So we met, and it was delicious. And my other sister, Mary, had said, well, I knew it was 4 fromages. I knew it was 4 cheeses, but I did not know what the cheeses were. So, but I know there was blue, and I'm sure there was mozzarella, and I know there was goat cheese and something else, but it was delicious. It was one of my favorite meals, was that pizza. Okay, so then we are waiting for them to pick us up for the Canal du Midi. So this was our home for that last week of the trip. It was stunning. We were in Sommeil. It was the name of the town where we started. They picked us up in Narbonne, drove us to Sommeil, and we got on. They had a champagne reception as soon as you get on the boat. And then we had a chance to go walk and see this bookstore, which I'm not sure why I was fascinated with it, but it was just fascinating bookstore, even though I don't understand any of the things. But so we toured that, and then got back on. We spent that first night docked there. And this was our rooms, and I did not share this on social media. They were tiny, and people think I'm exaggerating when I say there was this much space to shimmy out of, between our beds. And my sister and I just kind of made a pact that we would each sleep with our backs to each other, or so, but there's cubbies up top. Each of the beds had a thing that pulled out. There was a little side dresser that you don't see, and a very small closet. So you actually are able to, and they take your luggage out. You unpack, and it worked. I mean, it really was more workable than you would think, being that size. And I got kind of comfort. I ended up seeing it like a cocoon. Other people are like, oh, I'll just stay up top all the time. I'm like, I kind of like being there. So maybe because I was tired after a couple of weeks, it was nice to just relax. Tiny little shower. Oh, in the toilet. I don't know why I was fascinated with the bathroom, but it was very small. Okay. So you come on this barge. It only holds 8 guests. So 4 cabins for passengers, the crews up front. Still going. So it holds 8 guests, but it turned out that they had only booked 6, but one of the couples canceled at the last minute. So there were just 4 of us. We had 5 crew to 4 passengers. It was very intimate experience, and it was just amazing. So you come up on this deck, and then you go down, and so there's where that couch was, and a bar area, and then a dining table, and then you go down a little hall to the cabins. But that's it. That's the ship, or the barge. And so here we were setting off, and each day they would put up what our activities were that day. That was when we were going to Carcassonne. and then lunch, and then they tell you where we're cruising to, and then wine tasting that night, and then dinner. And these dinners, never in my life did I think we would say, please don't bring so much food. But they were and it was actually the other couple that was with us that finally said, can you bring smaller portions or something? Because we were, lunch, breakfast was a buffet kind of thing of mostly fruits and yogurt and baguettes. So it was pretty light. But then lunch and dinner both were just course after course. And they were small plates, but it was still, after you eat the 3 courses, then you have the cheese plate and then you have dessert. I mean, it was just huge meal. So they asked for smaller portions, but I was kind of disappointed because our chef Jean, he is a very talented pastry chef. And so he started giving us half desserts. And I was like, wait. I'm kidding. So one of our excursions was to go to, it's the largest walled city in Europe, or at least existing. Can't remember the name, but my sister, so we went here and we walked around. Basically, it's lots of shopping and interesting things, but it's just so interesting to see. Mm-hmm. I'm looking out. There was a cathedral in there. Okay, so then these meals, and this is just an example of, what we would have, but oh, it was fabulous, just fabulous. And every night they set the table with different, it was funny that for such a small space, they had the most elaborate dinnerware. I mean, and every evening, Daisy was our hostess. She would, present us with the wine and the cheese and some of the meals we had there. I mean, duck, quail legs, things I've never tasted before. It was just amazing. And that's Captain Laurent. And so then we started going through the locks, and the locks are this fascinating process of, has anyone been through locks? Yeah. Have you? Actually, in the US. Oh, ooh. So they have to come in, and our barge was actually too large for some of the locks. So he has to be perfectly timed and aimed to get in there. So you get in this, basically a cage, and then they start lowering the water. And so you can see we're up above the water. So the water down there is lower. So we're up above. So we get in this cage, and then they start lowering the water and it brings us down. Then they open the gate and we pass through. So we went through a few locks, but the most fascinating one was the staircase of 7 that we went through at the very end. And this was just, going under. And then our Friday night, they brought in a jazz musicians, and we had champagne on the deck, and it was fun. That was the jazz night. I was having fun. So, and then one excursion we went truffle hunting. Well, we didn't really do anything, but the dog did. And it wasn't technically truffle season, so she had just kind of buried some just to show us the whole process. And this puppy, he's 3, and so he's not a pro yet. So he would sometimes kind of dig it up and eat it, or when he wasn't supposed to, or he'd dig it up and it'd be over here and he's still but she said he'd be an expert probably in the next year or 2, but it was interesting to watch. And well, that's what they found, is that the pigs want to eat them, and that's the main reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the dogs, you can train them. So she gave him treats at every time so that he would not eat the truffle. And it's also an olive farm. And so she showed us these hundreds of year-old olive trees. And then we had lunch there. Oh my gosh, it was this anchovies and a salad and this burrata with the tomato. We could not get a bad meal. It was just fabulous. And there's the cassoulet. I finally got to try it. I had been looking for it everywhere. And it turned out that, not Rick Stein, Rick Stein had some kind of a France travel show that he did. And he was on the Anjodi, which was our barge. And he filmed it on that. And so he talks a lot about the Cassoulet as well, which was kind of interesting. There's my sister relaxing in the hot tub. And it was, the pace was just amazing because you're in the countryside mostly, you know, and it's not really like on the Danube River cruise, you're going through lots of cities, you know, and we docked in some cities, but on the very next to last night, we were just out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, just out in the country, you know, and it was just, so the atmosphere was so peaceful and relaxing. It was just definitely what I needed. And here we were getting ready to go through the longest canal tunnel. It was fun. Oh my God. Isn't that fun? And again, he has to be very, you know, good driver. So now we came to these locks so it's the staircase of 7 locks. And so it steps down. And so it takes about 45 minutes. But I stopped it. It takes about 45 minutes to get through each one lock at a time to get all the way down to the bottom. So it was a very interesting morning. Oh, there we were. That was the night before we were going to go down the locks. We went and checked them out. And so here we were. You can see we're at the very top of it, getting ready to go down. It was just the scenery. So then we went to another city. Yeah, I wrote it. Again, it was just, you know, a big shopping district, but this particular one, they're known for their doors. And so I've got some pictures of some of the shutters and doors that were just amazing. Oh, another. Just. And this is the night that we just were parked in the middle of nowhere. We had just some horses out there. So this is when so we're at the very end. We're coming to Marseille, which is like in a harbor, or they called it lagoon of the Mediterranean. So we've been on the canal this whole time, and this is where it merges the salt and the fresh water. So you can see we're in the canal, but we've got water on both sides of us. Oops. There's the entrance to the Canal du Midi, which we had been on the whole time. And we came out into this lagoon. Oh, it's gorgeous. Okay, and then our last night, we went to a vermouth distiller and learned their process of aging the wine out in the barrels and then going in and making it. And it's actually, I think it's owned by Jim Beam now or something. But so then our last night, we had the captain's dinner, and Captain Laurent, but we had a cooking lesson with the chef first. We learned to make these puff pastries that I'm not going to be able to make again. It's just not, I don't have pastries and baking aren't my thing. I like to cook. I mean, I'm going to make cassoulet, but I'm not going to make the pastries. So he had filled them with hummus and topped them with the eggs, fish eggs. So that was our crit. We made those. Yeah. And it was fun in his tiny little galley having that demonstration. And then the captain pours the champagne the last night. And this was our crew. They were just amazing. So we started in Samaï and ended in Marseille. And that was it. Okay. Thank you. So I didn't even expect that I would go as long as I did. So I have a few tips if anybody's curious, but otherwise we could just do questions. But okay, I just didn't want to keep you if you were done. Okay, so like I mentioned, part of the time I was with a group and part of the time I was solo. And my biggest suggestion is start with a group just to get acclimated. You know what I mean? Because it sounds so scary to just go by yourself. And I don't think I would have ever planned this trip if I didn't have that group thing to work around, you know, for myself. I was in Colorado once, and I was at the train station, and I met a woman. She was a retired school teacher, and she retired and lived off of her retirement, but then she would teach online courses and save every penny of whatever she got from the online courses to take these really big trips. And she would go to Russia, and she went to Thailand, and by herself on these trips. But her tip was, she said, she starts with a group. So she'll sign up for a group tour that's like 10 days, but then when it's over, she extends it for 2 weeks. So she's on her own, but she feels more comfortable after getting there and getting kind of used to getting around and figuring things out. So I'd love that tip. So start with a group, utilize a travel agent, or have someone look over your plans. If not, someone who's experienced with wherever you're going to, you know. So I have a friend who looked over mine, and he saved me. I mean, he's the one that suggested I download the train app, which other people hadn't. They just printed out their tickets. And so if I hadn't had that app, I wouldn't have been able to see where we were at when we were going. Make sure you have cellular service before you go. Another of his suggestions was pull up Google Maps or Google Earth or whatever you want, and really dig into the destination and figure out how to get around. You know, I mean, you can see where the tram or the bus or you can find all these things relative to the train and the hotel and things like that. And it really helps to go in feeling kind of familiar with the city by researching it ahead of time. Take the next step. And what this does, this has been my motto for years. I just say, take the next step. And what it does is it stops that fight, fight, or freeze. And see, in Paris, I froze. I'm not moving, you know? And so I forgot to say, I didn't know what the next step was, because that was the problem. But normally it's take the next step. And so.
Mine is, I'm with the right people in the right place at the right time.
Oh, that's good too. That is good. But for mine, in that particular reference, so my last big goof with the train was that I had purchased my sister and I's tickets to go from Narbonne back to Paris after the end of the cruise. And she had been first class the whole way, but I booked economy because I booked it. I booked it. And so it was not a direct train. I knew we were going to have a connection. We were going to have to get off the train and get on another one. But at this point, I'm a pro. I know where to look at the sign now, you know? And so I wasn't really worried about that. But when I was in Narbonne, the tourism person, I just showed her my ticket because I said, maybe I should upgrade to first class because my sister's been on first class and she might be more comfortable. So she looks at it and she says, did you know that you have a connection? And I said, yeah. And she said, did you know it's at another station? And I had no idea. And so that was a big one that I got lucky that she saw that. And so, so we had 1 hour. And the thing is, I didn't comment, but on the canal, we noticed that they take from 12 to 1 off. And so if we came up to a lock, the lock keeper was at lunch. And so we had to wait till 1 o'clock before they would let you through. And so it's the same thing with the taxis. And so somebody said, if it's between 12 and 1, you're not gonna be able to get a taxi. And they said, well, you can take this bus and this tram and this. And I was like, no, I cannot on the spur gonna figure that out. So it turned out our train got there right at 1. So we walked up to the taxis. There weren't any taxi drivers available, but finally there was one who was coming back from lunch. So he zipped us and we had an hour to get, and you know, it would have taken, I think, 45 minutes if we'd taken the bus and the tram and things that people said, oh no, it's real easy. You can just get there. But he got us there. We plenty of time. It was fine. But when we were worried about it, my sister was saying, well, what are we going to do? And I said, we'll just take the next step. If we miss the train, we'll just get on the next one. I mean, and so to me, it's that logical of all I can do is what I can do. And so, you know, so preparing for me, that's a biggie, because then I know what the next step is. So make sure you have cell service again. Research the destination, and I already talked about that. And pack lighter than I did, even though I thought I was packing light. If I had to do it again, I probably would try to just go with a backpack only, But my biggest obstacle was it was 3 weeks and I had two different environments. The writing residency was very casual and laid back, whereas I thought I was going to need more dressier things for the cruise. So I'm trying to bring, I brought I think 9 outfits, but there was no washing service. So I needed to have as many outfits as I was going to need clean when I got on the cruise so I really felt like I needed to bring as much, but if I ever had to do it again, I would try to do just a backpack, because every train station you go down the stairs and you go up the stairs, and it's a lot of lugging with the luggage, not the backpack. The backpack didn't hurt me until I took it off. It was the carrying the luggage that was so. Okay. And last tip, prepare for the time change and jet lag. They say it takes 1 day for every hour of time change. For me, I found that I sleep well the first few nights because I'm exhausted from the travel, but then I would wake up often just because my body is saying, what the heck, but I'm still sleeping and adjusting. But so the first 3 days are kind of foggy, and by day five, I felt adapted. So if I lost that day that I would have had to get acclimated. I would have had more time if I had to do it over before I did the writing residency, because I was sitting there in this fog at first, but by the end of it, I was back. So just allow time for the adjustment. So it is said that wherever you go becomes a part of you somehow. Travel is truly life-changing. It changes your perspective. It opens you to new cultures, food, and adventure. Then there's the empowerment that comes from knowing you can take care of yourself, and the joy of connecting with others along the way. You bring all of these gifts home with you. I want to thank all of you for being here. And again, Mona, for putting this together and doing the hard part that I could not have done. And Rebecca for bringing those delicious financiers. Yay, I can't, I still can't say. Oh, I did. I said financier. Financier. I can see, I stumble over certain words. Fini. Okay, Fini. So thank you all so much. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them if I can. Or thanks.